There seems to be an awful lot of sad stories in the news today, and there are thousands missing. Does anybody care? New Daybell channel, where we talk about those faces. Talking news. Debbie. Cassie Barons has still not been found, and it's been 2 years since her case first hit the spotlight. Breaking. Chad Daybell and Vallow both behind bars. Sarah Galloway was found. She wasn't found alive. What happened to Sarah Galloway?
It's too heartbreaking to share.
Children are still missing. Children like Dorsey. You're in shame. You just got away with it. Welcome to Talking News. Hello everyone. My name is Debbie. We use big stories to push little faces.
Hello everyone, welcome to Chasing a Murder Talking News. I want to ask you guys before we get started to look for that subscribe button and hit it right now. That way you can get notifications whenever we have new uploads. At least we hope so. Also, you can also hit the like button if you like the video or just to help the channel out. You can also drop a comment in the comment area and tell us your thoughts. Now, this video most likely will not have the variety of photos that you're used to, because this is going to be mainly a podcast, audio with a few pictures. I'm starting to get into a lot of information in this timeline that I have for the Lori and Chad Daybell case. So let's go ahead and get started, because it's going to be hard for me to get it finished. We are on Life Beyond the Grave, Part 42. And guys, that's not even halfway through. We really haven't been talking about Lori Vallow that much, but we're going to start off talking about Lori. Remember, Lori has divorced Joe Ryan. She tried to murder him, is what she says. And several friends can attest to this, including April Raymond. But she was not alone. Alex Cox, her brother, was right by her side. In fact, he was the one that tased Joe Ryan. They continued to fight over the custody of Tylee Ryan, but it starts to kind of calm down around 2015, just a little bit. Lori Vallow and Charles and their children, Tylee Ryan, JJ Vallow, and Colby Ryan, who goes back and forth during this period, they're living in Hawaii, and they go to church regularly. And Lori Vallow is starting to read Chad Daybell's books. In fact, it's about this time in a future interview with police and Charles Vallow that he says that this is the time where Lori begins to change. Her religious views become more and more outlandish. And you have to remember, and this is not me saying Mormons are crazy at all, but to normal Christians that are not Mormons, the ideals of Mormons are kind of out there to them anyways. So for Charles to say that Lori is going beyond, well, it must be getting pretty bad. In the police video with Charles Vallow, it's 2019, and he says it's about 5 years before that time is when he realized his wife was kind of seeing a lot of changes that were unique from even the Mormon teaching. He doesn't say whether or not that she is a translated being at that time, but we will learn later on that she does believe she is a translated being, and we'll go into details about that shortly. She begins talking to someone in the temple, and we realize that she's actually starting to mimic some of the things that she's reading in Chad Daybell's book or books. Now, I wanted to fit in Melanie Boudreau's timeline in here, but I just haven't had time to do and verge all of these timelines. But according to what we know at this time, Melanie Boudreau is living a normal life. She's getting to know the Cox family a little bit more now that she's an adult. Her dad can't keep her from doing that anymore. But she's married to Brandon Boudreau. She has several children with Brandon. life seems to be normal for her. She's kind of outgoing, and the two run marathons all the time. They also attend church. They are Mormons as well. So she's not in cahoots with Lori in this timeline. She's actually closer to Adam Cox and her grandmother during this time. But she does hang out with Lori here and there. Kay Woodcock and Larry come to visit in Hawaii. They spend some time with JJ and Kay's brother Charles. They even hang out with Lori for a bit. I've always been interested to know exactly what Kay knows about the Joe Ryan incidents. Lori Vallow spends a lot of time, like I mentioned in an earlier video, we're not going to go over that too much, being part of the youth program through the Mormon Church. She pays for, we know that she's paying for vacations for people to come to Hawaii and hang out with them. She even hangs out with Joe Ryan's sister, Annie Cushion, a few times. Annie had recently been to court, or going to court, sorry guys, and testifying against her own brother, something she says she will regret in the future. Chad Daybell's family has now moved to Rexburg, Idaho, and his children are growing up and leaving the nest a bit. A lot of them going out on their missions. Chad is starting to get very fascinated by Julie Rowe and her code work. But he also has a few interests of his own. This includes working with pendulums, magic portals, this sort of thing. And this is something that develops very slowly from 2015 to 2019. He also believes in astral projection, experiences outside one's body. In fact, he will claim that he has an experience in his house and his family witnesses this. Julie Rowe at first is actually speaking at some of the Mormon church settings. Also, she's supported by the church, it seems, at first. But real quick, things start to change. And what I notice is Julie Rowe cancels a few appearances and actually starts renting like halls or homes to speak in. And this is going to start happening around February of 2015 or maybe it was 2014. But it's somewhere within this timeline, guys. Julie Rowe starts talking about political topics and actually has a few premonitions. She claimed that everything's going to start going downhill for Obama in office. That he was going to declare martial law and refuse to step down, inviting the UN, including the North Koreans, to come and keep order. Several doomsdayers say that she most likely borrowed this idea from Spencer, who is also going around this same time with his ideas of the second coming. We'll go into that hopefully later. One blogger that actually talks on this topic says it's kind of insane or ludicrous idea because North Korea can hardly have enough military might to keep their own country from going into rebellion. And during Julie Rowe's ups and downs in support, Chad Daybell is there by her side. Now there's something I want to share about Chad Daybell. So when did he realize that other people could get messages from heaven or from God besides the bishops and the leaders of the church? It was around the same time that he did his missionary work. He was a teenager when his grandfather first told him about an experience. And Chad mentions in this blog that this experience had a huge impact on him. He said up until that point, he had figured only the prophet or apostles could receive visits from messengers. But he realized it could happen to common members of the church under the right circumstances. But he never says what the right circumstances are. For me, this seems to have started up when Chad realized that he couldn't be a sports star. Chad Daybell worshipped sports athletes, especially the good ones. He knew that these sports athletes had it going on. They were able to get the women the spotlight. And now that dream had been ripped away. So how else can he find a way to get women to adore him and to have the spotlight on him for a change? I believe he started as a teenager planning to manipulate those who think outside the box attached to the Mormon church. That's my opinion. Because Chad Daybell would meet with women like Julie Rowe and many others. A lot of times at BYU, occasionally at his home, even visit them in their own homes. One thing I feel is for certain is Chad Daybell wanted to be admired by both men and women. And he was doing this through his book writing company, his books, and in the future, through his strange teachings. He will carry a gift that most people do not. And this will actually draw in quite a few people who do admire Chad Daybell. So here are a few dates and places that Julie Rowe speaks. You notice here it starts off where she's kind of speaking through, at Mormon buildings. And later on, you'll notice it kind of goes to convention centers and residencies and community centers. Very interesting that she has a full lineup, guys, for that year. Maryland, Virginia, Tennessee, Texas, Utah. It goes on and on. Julie Rowe has visited Springfield, Utah, Chad Daybell's home 2 to 3 times around this point. And she says that she had actually gone to Rexburg, Idaho, and visited them dozens of times. She said that she had given the families readings multiple times. She says, quote, "I was close friends with Tammy and Chad and all 5 of their kids." My thought is Chad sees the following and the popularity of Julie Rowe, and he's wanting to learn how to gain this following himself. In fact, later on, Julie Rowe will say that this ranking system of the dark and light is stolen from her, but he takes and manipulates it to work in a different way. Chad Daybell will do a few private sessions with Julie. According to Julie, at one of these sessions, Chad makes a move on her. And we'll talk about this in more detail in the future, but just keep that in mind. It's somewhere in this time frame between 2015 to 2019. Even though this happens, they continue to be friends. Julie Rowe and Chad Daybell will start teaching multiple probation, meaning that you have come back to this earth and lived many lives. Maybe you've gone to a different planet and even lived a life there. This is sometimes referred to the doctrine of eternal lives. There's a few remnant groups that offshoot from the LDS church who also teach this doctrine. Online sources, I have found so many people who claim that Julie Rowe is the reason that their grandmothers or other relatives or friends live in poverty till this day. And these posts are angry relatives who love their families, who are very upset that they were taken by these teachings and ideas. At this point, let's kind of differentiate who Julie Rowe is versus Chad Daybell. Julie Rowe basically says, especially in her podcast later on, that she receives direction. Basically, she is like a leader for this army of God. She is getting the information she needs directly from the God and bringing it down to earth and stepping over the head of the LDS church. And here's where things get a bit shady. Since she's an entrepreneur, she's making money. Money is one of her main priorities, and she's doing it through the same movement. And so this will make people, raise eyebrows just to that. And I've always said if you are a messenger of God, you would not be taking money. But Julie Rowe is collecting money to prepare the grounds for people to run to, right? This is her plan. And it's also quite political. So a lot of conspiracy theories involved, including New World Order. People they look up to, Bo Gritz, Jim Harmston. And they're referred to as the far right. Probably where a lot of conservatives get their, downfall from is people who are teaching end days and New World Order conspiracies. I'm only mentioning this because this is something she believes in. It has nothing to do with my personal political beliefs at all. I'm just sharing where these guys are liking to get their information. In fact, we talked about it once before. John Pontus wrote this book called Visions of Glory. It's basically a book written about Spencer's story, his near-death experience. Now, there's something I want to share by Dr. Christopher Blythe. Last year, he shared something online, and it was about something called the White Horse Prophecy. He says that few people understand this, at least the details. Just so that you know, this has been disavowed by the LDS leaders. Anyways, they say that they were going to talk about this prophecy and discuss how it ties to Mitt Romney, who is a politician for the Republicans, who is also LDS. So the doctor says, so the story of the White Horse Prophecy is recorded in 1902. It's largely based on a Civil War prophecy. It has an idea that Gentiles are going to attack the saints. Actually, all sorts of wars are occurring here. It begins with a reference that says there will be a terrible revolution in the land that leaves the United States without any supreme government. Ultimately, the Constitution is going to hang by a thread. In the White Horse Prophecy, it's not a politician that says it either. In fact, the Red Horse, the Native Americans align with the White Horse, the Mormons, who are going to join together and they're going to preserve the Constitution. Anyways, the White Horse Prophecy is very prevalent for about 20 years and even into the 50s. I mean, the White Horse Prophecy is very popular. Now let's jump back to Daybell, which is Christopher Parrott. He writes, we have been told repeatedly by prophets and apostles for over 100 years to prepare for sudden and often unexpected, sorry about that guys, keep trying to lose my voice, events that will happen many years before the actual return of the Savior. They have warned us about the approaching and sudden famine in America that will last at least a full year, accompanied by a sudden dissolution of society and a government as we currently know it. In the scriptures, 3 wars are described during the last days, the 3 great woes. A strange small 5-month war, a devastating 13-month world war, and the final 3.5-year Armageddon war in Israel that will proceed in the actual second coming of the Savior. Is it actually possible to know more about what may be coming in the near future? Perhaps together we can add a few more details about some of the surrounding events that lead up to this prophesied time of chaos and darkness. Such knowledge would certainly help us to better prepare for what is coming, and perhaps even give us some real insight into the very nature of what is coming. Okay guys, so I'm going to go ahead and stop right here. So you can see where Daybell is kind of talking these end times and going into more details, something you don't get from Chad Daybell and Julie Rowe so much. They are more about the hocus pocus part of it. And if you're going to understand where Chad and Lori come up with this stuff, including Julie, you need to understand Visions of Glory, which we're going to go over next. It seems when one controversial individual with visions and prophesized the second coming, disappears, there's new ones that come and take their place. And I think it's important to know where these guys are getting their information and how they built up to this point in the timeline. I have listened to Spencer, and I can tell you, there's no way that he ever seemed to invoke types of magic or to be more like a clairvoyant. I truly believe through his illnesses and his near-death experience that as an infant, he believes in everything that he sees through his visions. And he is focused more on speaking about, what he sees than actually promoting a movement. Chad Daybell and Julie Rowe and others attached to this group are a little bit more aggressive. Heck, let's just say it. They're a lot more aggressive when it comes to being visionaries and seeing the warnings of the second coming. In the near future, instead of working with one another, they'll start actually behind the scenes kind of accusing one another of being false prophets. And this isn't too bad until Vallow comes into picture. And that's when things start to really fire up. Drama, accusations, finger pointing, and even claiming that people are evil, zombies, demons, and throwing curses at other groups. We are at the rest point in the timeline where the groups are actually being nurtured and they're coming up with ideas for the future. And at this moment, Julie Rowe and Chad Daybell seem to be a team. Now, I know I mentioned that I would go over the visions of glory, and I may do that, but I think it would be better if in between this video and the next video coming out, you go and read some of that for yourself. I think it's very important you read Visions of Glory. You can place yourself in the shoes of Chad Daybell, Vallow, and Julie Rowe, Hector Solsa, and so many more. The Doomsday Preppers are starting to actually develop a scenario, chaos, and, well, it's basically they believe this is something that's certain and will happen in the near future. Unlike what the majority of the Mormons teach, and that is to just be prepared. Don't go into debt doing so, because the church preaches against being in debt. So I'm going to go ahead and close out for now. Guys, do not forget about these cases. We have so many people that continue to be missing. Many of these cases are even on the verge of being cold. Dulce, Jasmine Robinson, Kira Coles, and the list goes on and on. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and you can head over to Patreon and donate if you want to help me out to be able to keep researching. Don't forget to drop a comment. Love you guys, and I'll see you guys soon.